North Huron Howson Bridge Dam Committee. I want to thank you for putting your names forward to be on this committee. Your positions were chosen on your expertise. I have to say that I was very impressed with the backgrounds and some of the expertise and the knowledge base that you gentlemen bring to this committee. Myself, my name is Kevin Faulkner. I'll be chair of it. I'm chairing the proceedings. Over here. Born and raised in East Wallinash. Spent some time. My dad was working on the pipeline in the big city of Toronto, but moved back when I was still in public school. So I've lived in this area and have grown up, married a woman from East Wallinash, Archie Purdon's daughter, Lori, and I. We've raised our 3 children here. Joined council this last election year. I look forward to working with you guys. So my background personally is in heating and ventilation, sheet metal welding, high pressure welding, that kind of thing. I can remember as a kid, well, I learned how to swim underneath the railroad tracks over here on that cement pad that was there before the pool was. And I remember enjoying the dam here when I first in high school. I was working over in Gorey, Farmatic, and on the way home back out towards Whitechurch, I'd drop in and have a swim at the dam every night just to kind of wash off the dust. So I'm looking forward to some positive progress and some great ideas. At this time, I'd like to, I know most of the people, everybody knows, but for the audience at home, if we could just go around the room and introduce ourselves and maybe give us an idea of some of the history and why you want to be on the committee.
Sure. I'm Rob Hutchison. I'm a resident of Wingham, and I've lived here since 1985. I joined Westcast when I came out of university and spent 28 years working there. One of my last jobs with them was operations leader at the machine shop, which is right adjacent to the Howson Dam. So I had an office that overlooked the dam. I was right beside it for quite a few years. I also spent 4 years after Westcast working for the Wingham Hospital and was the project manager overseeing the school development and turning it into a medical clinic, and also helped with the redevelopment of the hospital project. So I'm retired now. I've been retired for 2 years. So I've got time to help if I can, and look forward to working with everyone.
Thanks, Rob.
Andy McBride, also a resident of Wingham for 49 years now, I guess. Another chap and I had our own consulting engineering business here in town for a number of years until we sold to Burnside and Associates. Probably realize they still operate the office down there, the important part of town where the beer store and the liquor store are. I retired 10 years ago. From that, I've been a member of the Citizens Committee that's interested in the dam since it was founded. I have to look it up in my notes, but approximately 8 years ago. Currently employed part-time as a member of Provincial Appeal Tribunal. And I'm really interested in seeing how we get along on this committee.
Thank you, Andrew. Your qualifications are quite vast, and we look forward to your input.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cedric Walsh. Actually, probably the least amount of time in Wingham. Just moved here last year. Just looking to get involved with the community. I'm from another small town area, Damascus, so I understand rural life and everything. So my day job is a civil engineering designer. So I've worked on projects similar to this and a lot of highway road stuff. So
excellent. As I said in the beginning there when I was going over some of your members that were chosen, the backgrounds are varied and very diverse, and your expertise will need to thank you.
Ralph Metcalf, was born and raised in Howick Township, farmed there till 8 years ago. Worked for Howick Township for 19 years, and before that I had my own gravel truck and worked off the farm.
I'm Mike Martin, recent addition to Wingham, having moved here just over 2 years ago, two and a half years ago now. My father was in the Air Force, and I was born in Toronto, but moved throughout Canada and overseas. And I guess that gave me a travel itch, because when I graduated from engineering in Waterloo, I worked a little bit in Canada for about 8 years, and then I went overseas, and I spent the rest of my career in the Middle East in the oil business. Retired about just before we moved to Wingham. And right now I'm probably working in my dream job. I'm the harbor master at Kincardine Marina. I used to walk around marinas for free, and now I'm getting paid to do it. So anyway, so I'm looking forward to working with everybody on this. I have no fixed agenda. I'm open to whatever outcomes there are. I guess if I do have an agenda, it says a taxpayer in Wingham, I want to make sure that we get the most bang for our buck. If we're going to spend bucks on the Howson Dam, then we better be getting a damn good bang for it, because there's lots of other things that require spending on in Wingham, and any money going to Howson Dam, and from my perspective, needs to have a lot of bang attached to it. So.
Thank you. Mitch.
Mitch Wright, working at Bruce Power right now. I've been there for about 10 years. I moved to Wingham 9 years ago to be closer to work. I was actually born in the Belmore area, not too far from Ralph. Previous to working at Bruce Power, I've worked in various other engineering and manufacturing roles. So that's my background. I've enjoyed the river quite a bit. Just being out kayaking on it, walk the trails almost daily. So I just, similar to my neighbor here, I want to see how we can spend the money in the best way in order to improve the river system. I think having the river as a resource in town is a unique opportunity that a lot of other small towns don't have, right? So that's why I'm on the committee, to see, if we can turn the river into a real resource here and sorry, I'll have to call him back tomorrow. And it's important for attracting medical professionals, and it's got a wide range of merits other than just recreational. So that's fine with me.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us in this council or committee of council. First rule of order, or first order of the day, is the confirmation of the agenda. You have each one was given a copy. We'll go over 11 points on this agenda. Any additional items will be brought forward at another meeting. We're going to pretty much get through all the logistics first here. Near the end, through some of the reports, we do have the opportunity to gain access while we're still in session to go down to the bridge and carry on the final portion of this meeting at the bridge. So we can have a look and kind of get a bit of a look and a feel. Sean will have a few places to point out of where some things have been done, where testing has been done. So can I get someone to confirm the agenda? Andrew, seconded by. I'm gonna get through. Ralph. Okay, I've got them on here in numbers here. Thank you. All in favor? Yeah, carried. Declaration of killer carry interests.
Well, I'm going to speak up to that, although I don't believe it's a declaration of peculiar interest, but I think everyone should know. So I've been very vocal as your reeve that I don't want the dam to go, and I've been very vocal. We don't have the money to tear it down or fix it. We have to find different ways to get it. I've been after this since before I was elected. Again, I grew up here like a lot of people here. I've spent my entire life here and swam down at the river and swam from one of those bridges to the other. Peculiar interest may be that I just bought the Wilson home, which is on the river, just the house that's over the river. We only started negotiating 2 weeks ago. So it had nothing to do with whether the dam goes in or not when I made the purchase, because that decision has not been made. I want to bring it out so everybody's aware, but I want to point it out to the fact that I don't look at that any different than saying I got on council to reduce my taxes personally, and I can do that by not plowing your streets. And I wouldn't do that. I mean, a lot of you folks here have known me my entire life. So I just want to point it out that I don't see that as a conflict of interest. I didn't start that negotiation when this started. We just 2 weeks ago decided that we might want to buy it, and I signed for it this morning. If anybody else feels that it's a conflict of interest, I'd be more than willing to have a discussion. There's enough capable people here to continue on without me. I am an ex officio, which means I'm sitting here by the power of being the reeve, not as somebody that was picked by the council. And I have that authority in any meeting that has anything to do with the town. So I just want to point that out straight ahead. So if you hear it on the street, that's the way it went down. And I don't really feel like the renovations, but the wife is giving me a different direction.
Every boss has another boss.
All right, so noted. Anyone else have any new property on the river? Seeing none. Minutes of a previous meeting. Well, this is our inaugural one, so there will be nothing from them. We have no delegations for our first meeting that want to come forward.
Just Kevin, excuse me, if we did have a delegation, how do they go about advising you or whoever, Mackenzie, whoever they need to notify?
Just would be prior to the minutes going out for the next meeting. So probably
The minutes or the agenda?
or the agenda, excuse me. Yes, the agenda for this, and that's generally the week
The
before,
Friday before the meeting.
the meeting. If you have someone who wants to come, take one.
Because I was down there to the site recently and was approached by some people who were asking me some questions. So I said, would you be interested in talking to this new committee of councils? And they said they would, so.
Kevin, how would you prefer them to do that? Through you or through Mackenzie? From experience, I would suggest going through.
I would rather went through Mackenzie because, yes, sir.
Chair, if we could put it, any delegation question comes from me.
Oh, come through Sean? Okay, then go through Sean.
That answered that question.
Just they have the ability to remember where everything was put down on the piece of paper. Sometimes I forget.
Okay, thank you.
Other business, there's no other business. Going to the reports.
Skipped correspondence.
Pardon?
You skipped correspondence.
We have no.
Was there none?
I said there was no correspondence being none, other business being none. Well, maybe I didn't. Maybe I did skip it. Apologize. Reports. So the first part report that we should go look at is we've each have it in front of us here is the terms of reference of our committee. I do believe you should have all had a copy of this, present a copy of that, because it was in the formulation when you applied for the position. But it's good to go over it again, just briefly. North Carolina policies are to be appended to the TRO and procedural bylaws and codes of conduct, the accountability and transparency bylaws and procurement policies and acts and regulations that are referred to and then placed on the website on the minutes for our when you get a notification of the meetings. There are the attachments up in the corner to go over those. But the terms of reference, this committee, unlike other committees that we have, much like the museum committee, they already have a mandate. They already know what they want, and they're now in a stage of trying to figure out how to do that. The mandate of this quorum is to basically come up with an action plan towards do one of three things. Either to replace, remove, or remove, restore, or replace the dam. It is our job to figure out which one of those we would like to do and a possible course of action of how we could see that procedure going forward. This council has no reason to go into where funding would come from, what other necessary steps would be, other than to figure out what is the consensus of this group to do with the dam, and to take into consideration all the, if you want to remove it, what that entails also, like possibly restoring the natural water course or repairing it, whatever that includes, or removing. Just kind of an idea of if we'll find out what we want to do and what's the course of action to go from there. Then this committee of council will be completed, and it will be at the direction of Township of North Huron's council to consider those and further act on those as they see fit, whether that be striking another committee for financing, or striking another committee for how to move forward, or
So can I ask a question, Kevin?
sure.
Because
I'd like to have a very open forum.
Because it seems to me the decision on the path forward is intrinsically linked with how much it's going to cost and how we're going to raise the funds to get that, right? I mean, ask me what kind of car I'm going to buy, and if you tell me to disregard funding, it's going to be a lot different answer than if I have to disregard who's paying for it and where that money's coming from. So I see that goal as difficult to reach, right?
That goal has never been made. We haven't the goal of buying a car has never been reached.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is I think it's hard to establish what is the preferred path forward, because the preferred path forward is intrinsically linked to how much it's going to cost and where that money is potentially going to come from. Do you see what I mean?
Correct.
And I haven't been as very involved with the dam as a lot of people have, but I'd hate to see us. If we disregard funding, there may be a strong likelihood that this committee is going to select an option that isn't actually feasible, and we end up going in circles. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
It's
because if council then strikes another committee, and then that committee says, well, we can't come up with the funding with the preferred option, maybe that's 2 years from now and we haven't gotten anywhere, right? So maybe there's no other way, right? I'm not familiar with council.
We haven't gotten that.
Right, but you understand my point, I think, right?
So if I can answer that to the best of my ability. We haven't made a decision yet. We have to make a decision first. Funding, whether it's tearing it down, rebuilding it, or standing still, will be up to the next committee they put together. And then they will go before council, and then we start working towards that. Council does not have the ability to say we're going to put $5 million aside in case we build it. We're going to put $450,000 in case we decide to tear it down. We just don't have that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
We have too many other things we have to spend our money on. So the whole idea behind this was, let's set a direction so that the community can know the direction. And then the next committee that's struck will be the committee that says, okay, how are we going to pay for this? In between those two, each time the council itself will have to make a decision on whether to go ahead with the recommendations of either one of the committees. So it's all a matter of the councils. We as a council right now, this is a very divided, this is a thing in our community. we cannot say, let's have our staff find out where we're gonna find X amount of money. So first of all, that the whole idea behind this one is, let's decide as a committee that we suggest this, then it goes to the public. And then we'll pursue it at that level. That's why we can't go with the money thing first. I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't matter whether it's plowing the snow or it's keeping the lights on. If the township tells us they want all the lights on 24/7, our council has to find the money.
Yeah, and finding the money, I think ultimately comes down to the taxpayers.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And what they're willing to, support,
Yep.
right? And so that's why I see that it would be nice if there was a mechanism as part of our decision-making process, if we could, somehow seek input from the public on, if you had to, donate some of your own money, or if there was a special levy on tax increases, right? Would you be willing to do it for any kind of restoration or replacement or not? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
And that will be the next committee.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're not gonna start on that until we've decided whether we're tearing it down, holding still, or moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I think that, can I?
sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a difference between assessing or coming up with ideas on where the money can come from to do something and financial or economic considerations of proposals. So are you saying that, I missed it, because I didn't hear you say that we aren't to consider the economic viability of our proposals? That was your question, I think, wasn't it?
Well, it's related to it.
For example, if we come up with an idea that is going to result in a net income of $100 million a year for the township, regardless of where the hell the money comes from is immaterial. If that idea is sound and it's going to result in money because we take an action, that's all that we need to present with the background that says that's the money that's available. Do what you want with it. Go borrow, whatever. The second step of how you're going to come up with the money to meet the objective and gain that income is what you're saying we don't need to get involved with. But the analysis on what to do going forward has to take in economic viability. If we can't show economic sense behind the recommendation, we ought not to be making it, in my view. Okay? So economics have to be incorporated into the analysis. Have to be. Okay, and there's economics based on how much it's going to cost, and economics that say this is what we expect the benefits of the expenditure are going to be. And then you balance those two, and that to me is what has to come out of the deliberations. Okay, and I think what you're saying is the next step of where, assuming your deliberations are correct, and you make a recommendation based on that, where the money comes from is not our purview, and I can accept that. What I can't accept is that we should not do an economic evaluation of the options. That to me is not acceptable. We have to do economics, pros and cons, what's the income, what's the expenses, and do an evaluation on all the alternatives. Otherwise, what's the point?
Thank you for that. I just would add to that, you would not be able to make those decisions if you haven't gone through the scenarios and the information that's available. Or we can inquire more information in order to make the determination. The first step to make the determination is whether, is it repairable? Is it removable? Is it rebuildable? If the answer is no to two of them, you're going to come to a consensus that it's not rebuildable. And as a consensus, we don't want to return to natural habitat, but we want to rebuild. That's the decision we want. What that is for this committee. It's just the action that is a consensus of this group that was picked on both sides to come to a game plan, to what is our task ahead of us. And yes, there are many different financial considerations to be done. The first step is to figure out what you're going to do. The financial tasks to think about, if you start off in your mind, it's just going to be a used car, well, then that's all you're going to go through the whole process. even though it might be more feasible to you to buy a new car or lease a new car or take public transit. We have to come to those conclusions. We have to come to some kind of consensus of what is the future for that asset for North Huron. It's been back and forth many years, and that's why we got this committee together. You pros and cons. You have the one committee that says was save the pond. Another one was don't spend taxpayer money. Everybody can't be right. We need a consensus of what us as a group of intelligent businessmen through your backgrounds we thought was the best way to find out what is the best going forward, and then we'll deal with going forward once we come to an idea. Just instead of wasting time.
Let me give you an example. Best is very subjective. And so best in your mind, because you're looking at natural beauty, may not be best in my mind because I don't give a toss about natural beauty. I only care about whether or not I can take my canoe on it. Okay? And his best may be that he doesn't care about canoeing nor about beauty. What he's really interested in is how much money he can make, or the community can make, off of renting out plots to summer campers. Okay? So best is in the eye of the beholder. I thought what we were talking about was terms of reference.
That's why there's 4 votes needed to go forward.
I thought what we were talking about was terms of reference for the committee. So the terms of reference should establish how we're going to do our analysis.
What criteria?
What are the criteria? What are we going to look at? Okay, that's what I was expecting to see.
Well, the terms of reference were struck before the committee. And
I understand.
To every applicant that wanted to come on to the committee.
Quite right, and it does not preclude economic analysis. It does not.
Well, it's not this committee's responsibility to dwell on the financing part of this.
There is a difference between, I want to reiterate, there is a difference between financing, what the sources of the funds are, and economic analysis. Totally different things. Absolutely different. And you cannot, in my view, you cannot do an assessment of various alternatives and ignore economics. You can't do it.
Right, because for example, tearing the bridge down, I can't think of it. Tearing the bridge down may have long-term operational costs for the town. I can't think of what they would be, but let's just for now where they could be, right? So that would be part of the equation, even though we don't know where the money would come from to tear the down, or what the operational cost would be. It's part of the decision-making process of which option to choose, right? Just like if we refurbish or rebuild, they're going to have different upfront costs, different long-term operating costs, different net benefits, right? For example, maybe if you rebuild a dam, you can generate power. If you refurbish a dam, maybe it's very difficult to do that, right? So I don't think it crosses over into where's the money going to come from. But back to the car analogy which I brought up and you echoed, if you're going to ride the bus, buy used, buy new, or repair what you have, it's almost never based on what car do I have and what car do I want. It's almost always based on the economics, right? So without the economics of it, I'm not sure again what criteria we use to select the option.
Thank you. If I may, Article 4 of the terms of reference is written fairly open-ended, but it might give an indication as to where the committee will be moving. Specifically, the second paragraph, the initial responsibility of the committee will be the presentation of a work plan for council's consideration and approval. The work plan will consider that there are at least 3 alternatives available for the asset, including removal, restoration, and demolition. So the next step may very well be, or will in all probability be, that the committee amongst themselves figure out what that work plan is going to look like. So we're basically starting with a blank slate here. And that work plan may involve, some of the socioeconomic considerations, consultation with engineering firms, consideration of the data that we have, financial implications. The work plan is something that this committee has the opportunity to put together with the hope that the net output of that would be that it would, if nothing else, rule out maybe an option and indicate a preferential direction. But it is very much a blank slate, and I think it's up to the hope is that the committee will actually develop their own work plan and direction. I don't know if that helps or sheds any light.
Well, and maybe instead of, and maybe the ultimate output is, instead of this is the selection option, it almost can be an iterative process, is to say, hey, here's, I don't want to say several options because you've got several options, is not the issue. But it could be an input that kind of sending a message over the fence to the funding committee, right? To say, you know, this is the threshold. If you can come up with this amount of money, this is our preferred option. If you can come up with this amount of money, then this is, you know what I mean? Like maybe it can be a multi-step output as opposed to just a single output, and make it dependent on.
I guess to cover on that, you are correct in the economical plan must all be taken into consideration. What I was personally was trying to say was that as far as the fundraising goes,
Yeah.
that's not our responsibility of this committee. This committee can yes take in the economic portions of this, but what I was trying to say was it's not our responsibility to go out and fundraise or get a game plan for that. That will be a separate committee. So.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. I think what we should be focusing on today is the delegations. And it could be somebody to do with, my favorite subject is the turbine, which generates money. Have somebody speak to us. We could have somebody speak to us about the canoes, the idea whether it's a bus or a car you buy. I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. I think we need to have delegations speak to us and consider what they're saying and why they're saying it, even if that's delegations of ourselves. I think we're trying to answer the question here right now within an hour by the sounds, but I think we just need to go through the procedurals today and start to ask different delegations to step forward. And then I'll have comments on the delegations and how we feel about the delegations. And that then too gives this public, as you were talking about, them time to step forward, anybody from the public that would like to step forward. And then we can start a focus then down towards, because at the end of the day, Kevin is right, where those delegations, again, you can see the people when it comes to raising funds for it, to tear it down or keep it or whatever. But we need to hear those delegations, those different ideas and everything, and then start to formulate a thought, a way to go ourselves. Is that fair?
Where was I? Just again reiterating the task towards us is to getting a working model of what how to go forward, so that council can have the information structured around either replace, rebuild, or remove. The current explanation of resources and material review process is going to be sent out. We've got all your emails. So most of the reporting and scale work that's been done in the past is available and is online on the North Huron website, as far as reading through past reports by the engineers and by the conservation authorities, and what past decisions they have passed down through when they were looking at the dam, because this process has been going on since the 80s. So there's quite a bit of information there. I would suggest that you take some time and read through what that is available. We also have available to us, as Ree was saying, we can bring forward experts to this committee and delegations to speak towards us, telling it to get the information of things that that we may not know. We have quite a bit of information that we do know, but there may be some things that this committee comes up with the ideas of what don't we know at this time that we need to know to go forward. back here. Protect land.
8.2.
Well, the next one is the verbal report from the Director of Public Works, but I think we decided you were to say a few things.
I'm sorry, you're moving really fast. I thought we were still talking about discussion of the review of the terms of reference.
Yeah, and then we discussed the development work plan. With this,
Well, I
this
thought that
conversation,
was just in context
Okay.
of the
this
terms of reference.
conversation went beyond the report and
I
with the
understand.
input, so we can go back to discussion of, we've just went through the terms of reference. The now 8.1.1, discussion development of the draft work plan. We've covered some of that in the conversation.
I haven't seen a draft work plan. Did somebody prepare one or?
That's our job. That's what we're here to do. We're here to develop a draft work plan. And that's what we had the verbal discussions, sir, about whether that would be financial, whether it be economical. We had that discussion, but we can.
No, I understand.
we can come back to
no.
the next one was 8.1.2. We kind of, like I said, I was hoping for a fairly open forum with this committee, but we can go point by point. But
I just have a question
that
I just
would
skipped
limit
over, and
that would limit our input and our conversation. Explanation of the resources and review process, 8.1.2. As I said, in your email, you will be getting reference points and to articles that are on the archives of the North Huron municipality website, to the past information and tests and reports that have been delivered to the municipality since the 80s. I could go over them, but the stack is probably somewhere around 1,000 pages. If we really don't want to get to that point. On to 8.2, the verbal report by the Director of Public Works, as I was going to ask Sean there. We had discussed a little bit earlier, because we would like to go down to the bridge, that if there was any questions that you might have about where, what tests were done and where, Sean might be able to answer those questions more visually there than here, unless you would like to give a report prior to going down there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, before we all head down there, and just for context, the thinking was, everybody in this room has seen the housing, but we can't definitively say that everybody's seen it at the same time, in the same context. So the thinking was that, given the fact that this is the inaugural meeting, we'll all go down. I've got access to the gate, so we can actually get on the bridge. There's no risk to health and well-being to go on there for this purpose. And then we can have that kind of an open dialogue and conversation. And then as we talk through it, maybe some more thoughts come out. And at that point, before adjourning, and we'll adjourn down there on the site. But that's where this whole discussion on next steps comes in, and the idea of how this committee sees themselves developing their own work plan. So I think we can have a very open discussion on that. And it might, in the context of standing on the bridge and looking at some of the assets, you might actually, as members of the committee, have ideas on what you would like to see put together, or put in front of you before you can develop, or as you develop this work plan. So if,
I'm not gonna be able to go with you because I've got a meeting with some county people in about 20 minutes. I'd like to go back to the 8.1.1, which you were just referring to, Sean, discussion on developing a draft work plan. Again, going back to my thoughts, I think the first thing we should do is have an explanation of what's happened over the last 20, 25 years. I believe, actually, Andy, you were involved with one of the companies. You've had a lot of involvement in this, and I believe there was 2 other companies, was there? Okay. Is there anyone at any time that's actually put the whole thing together and everybody's on the same page? For instance, somebody tells me, and this is just hearsay, so this is the things I think we need to solve. somebody tells me that the cement is really weak on the bottom of it. And then somebody else told me that you would never push that dam that's sitting there out of the way right now, ever. It's the weakness of the dam. So,
And to echo that thought, if the committee doesn't kind of view all the historical information in the same light, it's going to be hard to ever reach consensus, right?
Yes.
Like if we have a different understandings of what some of those past tests have been or what the reports written have been, yeah, I think that's important that we all kind of get on the same page as to what that information is saying. Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw something a little further out there. I'm gonna ask you guys. I'm not an engineer, so it would be like me reading French. I'm just wondering if we could divide up some of that prehistoric information and the engineers could go through go through it.
It's relative, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah. And again, like, so somebody like myself would spend hours on the 1,000 pages where you guys could just sit down together and go, okay, this is important, this is important. So we need to bring this before the committee. And this is what's been done in 1985. This is this one, which puts us right here. And right here says this and this and this. And then everyone in this committee can say, okay, we know we have a problem here that's going to be an expensive problem. We know this isn't going to work here. And I'm going to give you an example. I'm just going to quickly give you an example. We started this committee and decided to do this. And between then and now, we met with a former Minister of Agriculture, and this information is going to come forward. So we were sitting over there, and it was a learning workshop, and we were talking about ditches for farmers and all this kind of stuff, and water flows. And he came up with, if you have a dam, for instance, fellas, if you have a dam, not knowing anything about North Dakota at all, and you take that dam out, then you're responsible from that day till eternity on anything downriver. Therefore, if you took your dam out, that means that an insurance company and another community, if they have flooding, are going to keep coming back until they find the change. And then you are liable. We did not know that a month ago as a council.
Where if the dam washed out on its own, you wouldn't be liable.
We have insurance.
No, but you wouldn't be, because you didn't
Yes.
make a decision to take it out, you
Yes.
wouldn't be liable for it, right?
So all of a sudden, I want this gentleman to appear before us and have the same conversation because, Bernie, he gets things a little mixed up once in a while, but I'm pretty sure I was clear on that one, that it was going to cost me a bloody fortune on my term if I took this dam out, period, because we've changed the water flow.
So that's interesting. Maybe a long-term operating cost to taking the dam out through increased insurance premiums
Yeah.
or litigation. But hopefully you've got the right insurance to protect yourself against that, right? So,
Yeah. So those are the type of things I think should come forward so that we all have a better, and you, again, echoing what a couple of you gentlemen have been saying, we don't really know where we're going yet. So I would suggest if the engineers in the room wouldn't mind, and speak up, gentlemen, if you could say, well, let's have a look at it. And at the same time, I've already requested whoever the guy was that spoke to us that our staff is going to get that information for us and bring that forward. And let's get the historical out of the way. Okay, we know this is done, so we're not repeating it. We know they did this, so why are we repeating it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then we can start, I think.
Yeah.
So, and then that leads into, correspondence and delegations. Very important to have delegations. I did spend a lot of last summer going around and looking at different dams. I took videos of it and talked to people that make money on it. I've been told by hydro people that you can't hook up. I've been told by people up in Bracebridge at a meeting, a week-long meeting that I had to go to, that you can hook up to it. Let's get the information proper so we know. Because again, it's all, as you guys said, that there's a financial impact on our community forever if we can put a generator in there and generate. Well, these guys are doing $80,000, $90,000 a year and they have little farm generators. So these are the things I think we should look at first and then say, okay, here we are, we've discussed everything. Now, which direction do we want to go? Go ahead, Andy.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a list of this historical documentation that's
You'll
available?
be getting one through your email.
It's on the website. It's on the council. It's on the town website. You just click on the town, go to Public Works. Under Public Works, it says the Howson Dam, environmental. I think it's called environmental, and it's right there. Everything that has been done since the 1980s is all there, including a summary that you're asking for, prepared by the Director of Public Works, it's all there, all the information is there.
No, I think what Danny's referring to though is if we're gonna divide it up and look at it, we just wanna make sure we've got.
It'd be nice if we each had a list here and we could
Right,
look
yeah.
at it and say, okay, this is what you could review.
We can print one off the,
If I may, Mr. Chair, what we'll do, and this was something that was going to be mentioned at this meeting, for the next meeting, so that everybody's had an opportunity to have an entire month to digest some of this information, we'll send you the link with all of the relevant reading material. As we get new information, we'll put it into that same location on the website. So it's a continual resource location for you. So right now, though, what you'll find is everything from, as I believe Mike just mentioned, the 83, 84 Atkinson Davies report, right up to all of the KGS stability assessments and all that. It's all there. So that material, that link will be sent to you right after this meeting later this week. And then at your leisure, you can click into it and look at any of those documents.
did you want to have a printout right now to review? Because we could print one, I mean, somebody here could print one.
The KGS
No,
report.
we'll print the
Just the
reports,
list,
just the
the whole
list.
report.
It's one
What,
page.
what is
Oh, the list.
available is what I was coming at.
Yeah,
I'm
the
quite
list.
quite
It's a
familiar with how thick the documentation is. I have quite a bit of it at home, but if we just had a list, because I don't think everybody knows what has been done.
Can we print the list of what's on the website? Is that possible to do right now? Push a button and say print?
No, not from here. Before we go that far, though, so there is a list that says this. You just want this list printed. Is there such a list, Sean? I'm not sure what he's talking about.
The website has a list of the documents that are currently there.
Okay, this is of the documents.
No, we can,
I think that's what you were doing.
Right.
Yeah. I can send you the link and then you'll see the whole list right there.
That doesn't achieve its
No.
objective. What are you trying to do is get the list so that we could address the question that says, can we portion the stuff out? But obviously, we can't get a list right now,
So,
unfortunately.
may I speak, Chair?
Yeah, the, also in the references and the township, its code of conduct and also transparency. So I just would advise you to read those as well before we have to do anything at these meetings that we don't want to. Yeah, I can, well, I can't print it out right here myself, but how do you do?
Before, if you'd like, Mr. Chair, before we head to the Howson, I'll print the list and then we can distribute it when we get there. Because we're still in the meeting, it'll give us the opportunity, for the committee, the opportunity to divide out the documents if they so choose.
The other thing to consider for a draft work plan, so Rob certainly probably feels my pain, so I've been a project manager for 10 years now. And probably because I'm 47, I'm starting to realize a year isn't very long. We actually have a very tight schedule to get everything we've done, I need to do in a year. So I'd like to see, if not by the next meeting, then certainly the one after, a fairly robust schedule, right? Like, because if we're gonna get delegations, we'll have to get delegations done by a certain time. It's gonna take time to get those delegations, take the information, digest it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's gonna be hard to put that schedule together, but we have to, I think, keep in mind if these are monthly meetings,
Now that schedule,
we're gonna have to get, figure out what's doing meeting 1, meeting 2, meeting 3 to some degree and give us time at the end to digest it.
that schedule work is going to be done or will be done through this committee.
Yeah.
That's what this committee wants to see. This committee is, as far as this year is concerned, is not going to be driven by anything other than our own curiosity. So the legwork and the digging in the ditches for the information is going to have to be done through this committee, because this committee has to come up with a response to council. It's not the other way around. We're not going, or council is not going to give us what reading material we need to go to, what direction we should be going in. You should look at this and look at that. This will be this council or this committee will be driving that. So
And all
we will look and find whatever we need to look and find.
Why is this only a monthly meeting?
That's just what council decided.
There's a lot of information in between the meetings to digest. would you prefer?
I share his concern that if we're only gonna meet monthly, certainly initially, I think there's an awful lot of groundwork that needs to be assessed, maybe not dug, but you say, this is the ground we want to dig, that's the ground we want to dig. You need to, and that's part of, I think, what Andrew was alluding to. And if we wait a month to decide to do that, you've lost a month. I don't think you can afford to do that.
That would have to go back through council to make the decision to make the meetings more frequent, because we're using the resources of North Carolina. I mean, we're spending taxpayers' money on staff being here for our meetings as
We
well.
can
So-
take our own minutes, that's the issue, is minutes.
Yeah, no, you can't. Sir.
Can the group only meet formally as part of?
If it advances the discussion in any way, any more than 4 used together would be considered a meeting.
Right.
That would be a quorum, and that would be this.
So I guess, for example, if there was a official discussion that we would take the list, divide it up, and then have that reviewed by the next meeting.
That could be done.
Can we meet separately and figure out who's going to divide that?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just acting on what was decided
Yeah.
within the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. So that might be an opportunity to get some things going.
We really-
And
So-
prepare a draft schedule.
Gentlemen, first of all, let's start this meeting off on a different note. If you want to speak, you will speak through the chair.
Okay.
Do not speak to each other, okay? And that way there's no rumble in the alley. He will let, including myself, whichever one of us wants to speak, and as part of your, you should have read the laws of engagement, as I call them. So we'll all speak so that we can all hear one at a time, and we'll speak through the chair to the other members so that everybody's aware. Going back to the discussion of the draft work plan, then I believe we were on a conversation of you're going to give us shortly, you're going to give the list that you asked for, Mike. And I'm not going to be there because I have to leave, but then you guys are going to be down at the dam. You could all say, okay, could each one have a look at this and this and this? And the reason I said there's a lot of you guys have a lot of talent in this line of work, so I'm not going to pretend I do. Okay, I don't know anything about engineering. We're going to depend on the engineering. So if you guys could divide that up and give us a summary at the next weekend, I believe that takes care of what we just said. We're moving along. We're not doing nothing today and then coming to decide what to do. We have said today what we want to do is we want to have a look at these engineering studies. And I know Andy has a lot of time and knowledge on him. He's going to be a great knowledge base for you folks that want to do it, to find and talk about it. So I would suggest that you guys do that part, get that started, and then when we have our next meeting, we'll have the engineers in this room said, we went through this, and there's this problem, not this problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at the same time, I'll try to get that letter from the Minister of Agriculture so that we're playing on that one too. Is that what you guys are looking for? We're moving forward now? I'll hand it back over to the chair then.
That's pretty much all that we were going to cover in, yes.
I want to go back to review of terms of reference on page 1 under mandate. The first bullet point says all previous decisions in North Huron Council shall be taken into consideration. Do we have that list? Have you prepared? Or I got to ask you, has anybody prepared that list for us? I don't want to have to go through 25 years of council meetings.
Council
month by
hasn't done
month.
anything.
I'm sorry?
Council hasn't made any decision on it in 25 years, so.
What's the reference here to all previous decisions by North Huron Council?
I've been around for a while, so I can speak to that. I'll speak to that one because I've been around. They're referring to the work they had done by engineers.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question I had, Mr. Chairman, was if we could be, this bridge has been looked at since the 80s. There must have been some work going on around the bridge in terms of maintenance of the Public Works Department. Can we get a summary from the Director of Public Works of the work that's taken place on that? I think there's a bit of that in his report, but I'm not sure how inclusive it is. And I'd kind of like to know exactly what work has been done over the years on the bridge. is that possible
Would
to
you
get our hands
like
on?
to make a motion that we
Sure.
obtain that information from?
Sure. If it doesn't exist right now, then I'd like to move that we can get it.
Seconded by the Reeve to request information from the Works Department on the previous work. Maintenance work, is that what you?
Any work, so whether it's capital expenditure, whether it's maintenance under the maintenance budget, what work was done, and a little bit on specifics. And what cost was and what exactly was done and what was achieved. It's a big report. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. I don't know.
No? Okay.
I'm hoping it's a push a button job to print out a report.
Well, we had a motion in favor, on the floor, all in favor, of getting that information? Passed.
One thing that's one thing that I didn't see in here, and I don't know very much about it. Maybe Andy or somebody can shed some light on who controls the operation or lack of operation of the bridge and the dam. Is that controlled by only this council, or is there a provincial or federal body that has oversight of water flows? Ministry of Natural Resources, for example, do they have any kind of oversight on operation of dams, what you can do with it, what you can't do with it, once it's built, the building of the dam, the modification? Is there anybody other than any government agency other than this council that has direct or indirect responsibility or interest in the dam?
I'll pass that question on to Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the MNRF controls any work that's done on these structures, and it's done in accordance to LIRA, the Lakes and Rivers Improvement.
Oh, right.
So they're the governing body that would have input into any course of action that we would take. Now, in terms of day-to-day operation or seasonal operation, that's done at the level of the municipality.
So is there any reporting that has to be done by the municipality to them on a yearly, monthly, quarterly?
We don't submit anything
Nothing.
on an annual basis to them to discuss the state or condition.
We don't because we choose not to, or we don't because it's not required?
I haven't seen any indication of any requirement whatsoever. Okay. It's just if you're going to do work on it, that they would become very involved.
All right, okay, all right, okay.
And to follow up on that, like the role of Maitland Valley in this, right? Like, do they have, again, any regulatory veto power over any decisions that are made? Like, because I have a personal experience where someone wanted to put a dock into the river in Maitland Valley, came out and looked at it and said, no, you can't do that, right? So do they have similar authority to work on the dam that the town may want to do?
There again, I'll pass that off to the expert in the room on the.
It's my understanding, and Andy, you may have had more dealings specifically with this, but it's my understanding that asset is entirely, unlike some of the other dams in the area, that asset is the property of the municipality. So they don't have the direct influence on the operation. And unless you're aware of anything outside of that.
No, you're correct. The only agency that has any control over the dam initially is Natural Resources and Forestry. Any significant changes to it would have to be approved by Fisheries and Oceans Canada to ensure that it wasn't going to be an obstruction or damage fisheries habitat. But the Conservation Authority, to the best of my knowledge and investigation, they have regulations that control waterways, but because this is an existing facility, it was created long before conservation authorities were even thought of. Their regulations don't apply. So Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, and if significant changes are being made, Fisheries and Oceans Canada are the two agencies, to the best of my knowledge and understanding.
One other question, Mr. Chairman. Stakeholders. Do we have has the council prepared a list of stakeholders in this, with respect to the Howson Dam? Anybody that in any way might be interested in or be touched by or want to touch that dam? So completely comprehensive list of who all the stakeholders are. Do we have that?
I'm pretty sure it's a public entity. It's owned by North Huron. So
I'm not sure that
it's an asset.
But right now, we've talked about 4 stakeholders right now, just in this last discussion. So who haven't we talked about? So stakeholders are Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, the Fisheries Maintenance Conservation Area, and Northern Council. Those are 4 that we just listed so what are the other ones that we don't know about that haven't been listed? So are there any? There may not be any more. Maybe that's all there is.
I'll send that question over to the experts.
Through your chair, and it would depend on the definition of stakeholders. There's obviously neighboring municipalities would have a vested interest in any decision that's made surrounding the dam. There has been some discussion on, hazard to use the word concern, but certainly some discussion surrounding the dam's influence on municipal drainage. So, you start getting into the AMAFRA piece as well.
Mhm.
If
I think that's important, and I'd like to, I move that we ask for a list of all the stakeholders known to them. And then we can maybe add to it ourselves. If you're gonna do a project,
It would build right into the delegations. Sorry, Mr. Chair. It would build right into the delegations that we want to hear from too.
exactly correct.
at least reach out to.
The motion on the floor to compile a list of certain and possible stakeholders on the assets upstream and downstream of the Howson Dam. Do I have a seconder? Number two, Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Any other discussions to go back to any of the points we've covered to this point? Like I said, it's the inaugural meeting, we're just trying to get the ground rules out. We are getting quite a.
Mr. Chair, just an open-ended question that if anybody in the room on the committee, is there any maybe other burning issue that we should maybe think about investigating between now and the next meeting? Again, just kind of keeping a year long.
Excellent, just question. Like I said, would like to keep the this forum quite loose as far as our thought process of going back and forth. So yes, anyone have?
Mr. Chairman, one thing that crossed my mind is we're going to look at previous studies that have been done, examinations, investigations. What if this committee decides that we would like to have another piece of work undertaken to assist us in developing our work plan? Does this committee have any budget of any kind?
Should be in terms of reference, I believe
It's listed in here, I'm told.
Yeah, it's just the funds available through councils awarded to this council. I believe it's just shy of $16,000 as far as to request or have someone speak to us.
Okay, I see it here now.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just for clarification, there was that, as the chair pointed out, $16,000 was earmarked for use by this committee, but it was specifically intended to be used to bring in delegations. For example, previous councils had KGS on site. They had the Ontario Rivers Alliance. They had a number of state or engineering firms and various resources that were brought in at an expense. So that the funds that are there were basically earmarked to make sure that this committee could call for any of those experts to be to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as doing additional engineering, that was not something that was identified as part of the mandate. That being said, the 16K is there, but only to be spent on authorization of council. So if the committee says, you know what, we really want to get going and we want to bring in these individuals, we have to get authorization through a report by me to council before we can do that. It's not just an open.
Understood.
Fund.
And gentlemen, on that, so for you, Kevin, council only meets twice a month, so if we want, as we were talking about earlier, we want to move that along, it's better we move it along upfront than wait till near the end of our sessions, because we do have to, it's just twice a month we need to.
Yeah, because Mr. Chair, if I understand the timeline correctly, if in a meeting we wanted to meet from a delegation, then the best case scenario is we'd have that delegation the next meeting, because theoretically you could pass that resolution to council. There'd be time to reach out to the delegation and maybe have them attend, but it may be just as likely that it's 2 months away because by the time we get it passed in council, then their availability may not be possible. Yeah, so it's certainly something to keep in mind.
But it has to be done in an open, transparent. We have to do it through these meetings, and they're all public meetings. We're broadcasting as we sit here right now. So that's why that's done. We just can't have a quick meeting and say, okay, even though it's good, it has to go through procedures.
Yeah, the suggested future meetings have also been encouraged to be in between the council meetings, so that there is time, so there is not that entire month lag that they hit between the first and the third. We can discuss that further down at the dam. If there's no other questions or comments at this point, I'd like to take a quick adjournment, and then we can meet back at the dam, and we'll reconvene and finish your meeting there.